Hey guys, what's going on? This is Justin from LitTube, and coming at you with another face-to-face video. I want to talk some more fantasy football, and I decided what I was going to do with this video is actually push you in the right direction towards some websites and channels you can do research on, because I know, even though my channel, LitTube, does fantasy football coverage, you probably don't want to get all your information from one source, and the fact that we're a well-diversified channel, fantasy football is not all that we do. We do politics, news, sports, film reviews, all this different stuff. So if you just want to focus on guys that are going to give you fantasy football coverage, there's definitely some good YouTube channels for that. I want to push you in the right direction towards. But more importantly, there's websites out there and podcasts where you can get really valuable information depending on whether you play in a dynasty league, a redraft, keeper league, PPR, standard scoring. There's all these different formats for fantasy football now, so there's different sources that are tailored more towards those different formats. So whether you're just trying to, find the best website to do a mock draft, or you want to find the best website to have your standard scoring and PPR rankings, or for other types of notes and advice, I'm going to push you in the right direction with this video. All these sources I'm going to mention are free, but maybe have some premium features that you can choose to buy as well, which you don't necessarily need to, of course, but depending on if you're playing in a high stakes league, you probably do want the cream of the crop as far as your information and analysis is concerned. But I think with all these things I'm going to give you, you can pretty much get by on the free access as well. So let's get started. Okay, so I'm going to start with fantasyfootballcalculator.com. This is one of the best websites you can go to specifically for mock drafting, and we all know that mock drafting is a big part of preparing for your fantasy football league. If you're going to take things seriously and really want to make a run for a championship, you're probably going to want to put some time into doing mock drafts. Now, there's other websites that have mock drafts, of course. I think ESPN and Yahoo, you might be able to do them, but the thing that's great about this website is, number one, you're doing mock drafts either in PPR or standard or dynasty rookie, and you can do them against real people. If not enough real people join, there'll be some computers picking, but usually you don't have to worry about that. So that's number one. You pick against real people. Usually, the way they have their rankings makes a lot more sense than places like Yahoo and ESPN to get their rankings screwed up. This is a lot more like the average draft positions you're going to see in serious fantasy leagues. So that's why I really recommend going here to do your mock drafts. In addition, if you don't want to take the time to actually go through and do your own mock drafts, you can go on there and just look at mock drafts that were just done, or look at the average draft positions of players. So it's a really great free website to get that kind of information. Whether you just want to get the ADPs or you want to actually go through and do mock drafts, this is the go-to website for that. FantasyPros.com is one of the best websites to go to, and I highly recommend it. One of the big features of this website is it pulls in all the analysts' rankings, like all the fantasy experts that are out there, and it kind of gives you a consensus ranking by averaging together what all the experts think. So this is basically a way to get the expert rankings and all collaborated into one single ranking system. So it's one of the better ways, it's one of the more trusted rankings, in my opinion. I always use it for my in-person draft. I'll print out my PPR rankings from there. You can also get standard and other types of rankings. And you can also compare players on there. So if you want to, there's a tool on there, it's Who Should I Draft? And you can plug in, say, Melvin Gordon and DeMarco Murray, and it'll tell you percentages, okay, this many experts would pick DeMarco Murray, this many experts would pick Melvin Gordon, and you can break it down by standard and PPR, and it changes the percentages. And you can get notes from the experts also on the players you're comparing. So that's really my favorite tool, actually, to use with this website, is the player comparison tool, seeing what the experts think, seeing what the experts have them ranked comparatively. So it's a great way to, get consensus expert rankings and analyze them. The other big feature of this website is they have a draft wizard, and you can pay money to get the premium tool that lets you customize a bunch of things. But that's another great way to do mock drafts. If you just want to, if you're fine with mock drafting against the computer, don't care about mock drafting against real people, you can do that on this website as well for free. But this is definitely a place you want to check out for whether you're going there for rankings or comparing players or doing a mock draft. All those things can be done on this site, and I highly recommend it. Okay, so now I'm gonna get into more of like the podcasts and YouTubers advice. I just covered my two favorite websites, so we're gonna move on now to the YouTubers and podcasts. So starting with Matt Kelly from Roto Underworld Fantasy Football. That's his. You can look him up on YouTube with that. But this guy's really more of a podcast guy. He does a podcast on iTunes and regularly talks about fantasy football. He really focuses more on dynasty than redraft leagues. So for those people that do the dynasty leagues that carry on from year to year to year, this is your guy for that. He's really good at identifying talent coming out of college into the NFL. That's really what I use him for more than anything else. And he has his own website called playerprofiler.com, and on there, there's a bunch of premium tools you can pay for if you're super serious about Dynasty, but it also allows you to look up players and see their metrics. So you can check out their age-adjusted production, you can check out their combine workout scores, and you aggregate all that data and analyze it, and you can see, okay, which players check the most boxes athletically and also from an age-adjusted production standpoint, because those are really the two things that put together predict whether a player is actually going to be good or not. And in a vacuum, it excludes the situation of, okay, this guy's on a bad offense, this guy's on a really good offense. It allows you to analyze players in and of themselves, and that's what I really like about that tool on his website. But he also does a YouTube show, he does a podcast, so in addition to looking up guys on the website, looking up information about specific players you're interested in, you can just listen to this guy's content, because he gives a lot of great content on his podcast. This is a screenshot from playerprofiler.com just to give you an idea of how the website works. I looked up Marcus Mariota, quarterback for the Tennessee Titans. Why did I look up this player of all players in the database? Well, I did that because I believe that Marcus Mariota has the most impressive metrics profile out of any player you could look up here. So you look at the bottom, like his college quarterback rating, college yards per attempt, breakout age, Spark X score, which is, basically an overall grade of athleticism. All of those metrics, he is over the 90th percentile. So, like, for Spark X, athleticism, metric from Nike, he's 97th percentile. What does that mean? That means that Marcus Mariota is more athletically talented than 97% of NFL football quarterbacks. That's what that means. So, like, the percentiles compare these guys to other players, like other college and NFL players. So it's a very extensive database, has all the current NFL players in it, and also some players that have retired. So it's a great database. It also gives you a best comparable. So, like, they're comparing Mariota to Prescott here, even though really it's not that close of a comparison. But I look at this profile, and I can just off of this profile tell you definitively that Marcus Mariota is going to be one of the best quarterbacks, considered one of the elite quarterbacks in this league for years to come. Why? Because he's so young. He checks every single box from a metric standpoint. Every single thing on here is impressive, and that's how I know, without even watching his film, that he's going to be an amazing quarterback in the NFL. And that's really one of Matt Kelly's big things. He's not big on film grinding because that's subject to bias, but the metrics tell the story more often than not. Fantasy Football Advice is a relatively new YouTube channel. They also have a website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. I stumbled upon these guys recently. The main guy on this channel, his name's Nick, and this guy really puts a lot of time into doing his homework on not just projections for players for the upcoming season, but he does a lot of analysis going back historically, looking at, how the quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end positions have evolved over time. Like he has like statistical data he's presenting you with, and like bar graphs and stuff. So, like, it's really interesting content. He has videos on like how do you predict a top 5 running back, how do you predict a top 5 receiver, like things to look for. So I like how this guy blends metrics into his analysis as well, in addition to going off of film and stuff like that. But this guy, this channel, they talk about a lot of different stuff that I think is good content. I don't agree with Nick's takes all the time, but, you know, I don't agree with any experts all the time. So I would definitely check out this channel if you're looking for something new, something fresh that is going to give you good fantasy football information. These guys are actually one of the best I've come across. So definitely check them out. They have Facebook groups as well. I don't know if you can get into those now because they're kind of like closed off groups. They might have maximum members now, but these guys offer premium services on their website if you want to pay the extra money. But they got rankings up there. The video content's great. Definitely recommend checking them out for sure. So this video wouldn't be complete if I didn't at least mention the fantasy footballers, because these guys are really popular on YouTube now. They're definitely held in high regard for providing really great fantasy football advice. So they have an entire like video and podcast show dedicated to bringing you that content. So you can look them up on YouTube, the fantasy footballers. I got their website on there as well. These guys, you know, I have no issues with the content they provide. Like, they provide some really good takes on players. I think they're geared a little more towards redraft than dynasty, but most people are playing redraft leagues. So that's fine. So they basically have like 45-minute long videos just like discussing fantasy football related things. The reason I don't use these guys much is because I just don't want to sit there and watch like a 45-50-minute video every week on like fantasy football. Like, that's just a little too much time on one video for me. Like, they do a lot of long strung out videos. So they might be better to just listen to on their podcast. Like, if you just want to have them set up and like listen to their radio podcast, probably a better way to go about it than watching their YouTube videos, for the sake of like not getting bored and feeling like you're wasting your time. But these guys do provide really good content and are held in high regard. Most people on YouTube say that these are like their favorite guys to listen to, so definitely check them out. But again, they're not my top source. So there's a fantasy football expert who calls himself Hussein the Brain, and he's the one that's running the Fantasy Couch YouTube channel. He also has a website, fantasycouch.com. So you can check this guy out. He's not like my favorite source, but I do from time to time check out his videos and what he has to say. He's actually one of the experts that has his rankings up on Fantasy Pros. So like I mentioned earlier, Fantasy Pros aggregates all those expert rankings. He's one of the experts. So this guy is a legit fantasy expert who's on other websites. But as far as like his original content on YouTube, he's basically talking to you from the couch, like just kind of in a non-confrontational way, giving you his takes on fantasy football. Actually, the way he sets up his show is very similar to the way we do our couch side show, where, you know, LitTube's talking about political and news stories. But this guy does the same format, but with fantasy football, and he also does mock drafts and stuff. So he's a guy worth checking out. The last YouTube channel I want to talk about is Fantasy Sports Network. They also have a website, fantasysportsnetwork.com, and these guys are actually also like a television station over in like Canada or something. They don't just talk fantasy football; they talk about all different fantasy sports. They do like golf, MMA, baseball, basketball, like all this different stuff. But I think their bread and butter is probably still the fantasy football. They have some really interesting personalities, from Gabe Morency to Pat Mayo, Tim Andercust. These guys, I don't think they have like the cream of the crop in terms of like the best fantasy football advice and information, but the reason I like them is because they're the most entertaining to me out of all the YouTubers. Like, these guys are the ones I like watch more than anything else just for like entertainment purposes. So they got a really good cast, a strong cast of experts and other media people on their network. They're very professional in the way they do their shows. Like, it's like you're watching it on television. Like, it's really great. Again, they're not my top source for the actual expert analysis, but I do enjoy watching their content regardless. Now that we're coming towards the end of the video, I would definitely say like the two websites I mentioned in the beginning of the video, Fantasy Football Calculator and Fantasy Pros, go to those first. Those are just websites that have tons of information and tons of different things you can do with them. But as far as the content, I actually prefer probably Matt Kelly, Roto Underworld, and also Fantasy Football Advice are probably the top two I'm looking at most of the time. But these other three, the Fantasy Footballers, Fantasy Couch, Fantasy Sports Network, they're all good in their own right too. So I would definitely, give all of these different avenues a chance and see how they work out for you. But make sure to subscribe to LitTube and like the video. We're going to have more stuff like this coming for you.